You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and we all know what I'm starting with. The biggest contract in sports history. Probably the biggest contract that anyone has ever signed, period. Not counting Fortune 500 companies. And that is Patrick Mahomes getting his big boy contract. We all knew this day was coming. I had said in the past on this show that whatever contract Patrick Mahomes gets won't be enough. Well, I think I was wrong on that front. This is more than fair for Mahomes. I mean, this is absurd, his contract. He signed a 10-year extension. So, he's going to be a Chief until he's 36 years old. So, this deal takes him all throughout his prime and probably into the back nine of his career. Nothing wrong with that. The Chiefs had to keep him for the rest of his prime. You get one or two worse years out of it. Alright, you can live with that. That's free agency. The contract is worth a maximum of $503 million, with $477 million in guarantee mechanisms. What are guarantee mechanisms? Mike Florio put it really, really well. Basically, there are rolling guarantees all throughout this contract. The Chiefs have to commit to Mahomes early in the offseason, and then his contract becomes guaranteed. If they don't want him, they can cut him. In other words, they can't let the offseason play out and then decide whether they want to move on from Mahomes or not. This is similar to a contract that John Gibbons signed with the Toronto Blue Jays. He had a contract that guaranteed he'd never be a lame duck manager. Basically what it was, and this is an old article from ESPN, Jerry Krasnick wrote it, on New Year's Day 2015, when midnight struck on that day, so 2014 became 2015, Gibbons' 2016 salary became guaranteed. So, Gibbons was going to get paid throughout the 2015 season and the 2016 season, plus there was a team option for 2017. If the Blue Jays exercised that 2017 option by keeping him on the payroll throughout New Year's, he'd get 2017 guaranteed, and then 2018 would become an option year, etc., etc. So the Mahomes contract is similar to that. Granted, Gibbons signed for a lot less money. I mean, this is 10 years worth $50 million per year. Assuming all the benchmarks are hit. Again, richest contract in sports history. Mike Trout no longer has that title. When you look at average annual value, Damian Lillard held that record in all of sports. Now it's Mahomes. But you know what? You can't begrudge the Chiefs at all for signing him to this contract. There are people out there that are actually saying that now the Chiefs are in cap hell. Look at all the pieces they're going to have to lock up. They're not going to be able to do it because Mahomes got a huge contract. He should have taken a team-friendly deal, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's a slippery slope. This was Patrick Mahomes' time to get his contract. If he's not going to get it now, when is he going to get it? Realize, the coronavirus is a thing. There's a chance, and I hope this doesn't happen, because I love watching Mahomes play. But there's a real chance that at some point in the coming season, this guy gets the coronavirus. And then he's not getting his big boy contract. So lock in his money now. Do right by him if you're the Chiefs. This guy took you to a place that only Len Dawson had been able to do before. And even then, Dawson didn't lead the 69 Chiefs to 3 straight comeback victories in the playoffs. What, you want to tell me the Chiefs should have pushed for a team-friendly deal? No! Absolutely not. You need to keep Mahomes happy. He's earned this contract. You cannot begrudge the Chiefs at all for this. You want to tell me it's a huge overpay that no one is worth this type of money? You're right. But we all knew Mahomes was going to get it. We all knew that Mahomes was going to get a record-breaking contract. We just didn't know how far the contract would go. How can you begrudge the Chiefs for this? Let's say that the Chiefs drew a line in the sand. No, we want you to take a team-friendly contract. Mahomes can easily say no. And the saga plays out, and plays out, and plays out, until he hits free agency. If he hit free agency, I promise you, another team would have given him this contract. Now, you want to tell me that by the time he was slated to hit free agency, a million things could have happened? Yeah, you're right. Maybe he could have won another Super Bowl MVP. I mean, then the price goes up. You lock him in now. People are under the assumption that we've seen the peak of Mahomes. We have not seen the peak of Mahomes. The best is yet to come. This guy is going to have another 5,000-yard season. This guy is going to have another 50-touchdown season. He's that talented. This guy is on a Hall of Fame trajectory. And this is only his 3rd year starting in the NFL. Of course you lock him up now. Of course you give him his big boy contract now. How would that look if they didn't? Thanks for bringing us our first Super Bowl in 50 years. Now we want you to sign a team-friendly contract. No! Look at it from Mahomes' end. Again, he can get the coronavirus. He can have a season-ending injury week 1. And then the price goes down for him. Of course he's going to want his money now. No one can begrudge him for that. And no one can begrudge the Chiefs for giving it to him. You want to tell me that the Chiefs are now in a precarious spot when it comes to the salary cap? Yes. But you cross that bridge when you get there. Patrick Mahomes is the type of player who can lead a subpar offense to greatness. Let's say the Chiefs can't keep everyone around. Let's say they're forced to move on from Tyreek Hill, and they're forced to move on from Travis Kelce, and they're forced to move on from Sammy Watkins, and they're forced to move on from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, assuming he pans out. You know what's going to happen? The Chiefs are going to find other players that Mahomes is going to make look good. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Chiefs' skill position guys, but you know what? They wouldn't be as good if Patrick Mahomes wasn't their quarterback. I saw Sammy Watkins a lot with the Bills. He's better now with the Chiefs than he was with the Bills. Damian Williams never would have won a Super Bowl if not for Patrick Mahomes. He can lift these average to above average players to greatness. That's the mark of an elite quarterback. That's what the Chiefs are banking on here. It's Aaron Rodgers logic. We don't need to surround him with great offensive playmakers because we have a great quarterback that's going to turn these decent skill position guys into stars. Now that's a slippery slope. The people saying that the Chiefs are going to be in cap hell soon are right. And you're already seeing it with Chris Jones. I'm sure the Chiefs would love to have extended Chris Jones by now, but that's dragging out. I'm not saying we're at a Jamal Adams point yet, but he hasn't been extended yet. God only knows if he's going to be a Chief long-term or not. But it's the kind of thing where you just cross the bridge when you get there. The Chiefs don't need to worry about the future. They're a win-now team. Yeah, we have Patrick Mahomes as our quarterback, but we're worried about 5 years from now. You've got to be kidding me. Win as much as you can with Mahomes. And then when you get into cap hell, alright, you'll have a few lean years. You'll still make the playoffs, but maybe you won't be Super Bowl contenders. I'll take that. And then when you've built the core back up, boom, you're winning more Super Bowls. The big question is what this means for other quarterbacks. And I'm not talking about guys like Dak Prescott or Deshaun Watson. Those guys are not at Mahomes' level. I'm talking about a guy like Lamar Jackson. A guy who had one of the best seasons in recent football history. Let's say he exercises his postseason demons and wins a Super Bowl next year, and he gets Super Bowl MVP. Would the Ravens match this contract? Would they come close to it? Would they exceed it? See, every team with a franchise quarterback that they think can turn into a guy like Mahomes, not the player Mahomes is, but will win Super Bowl MVP, they have to be a little worried. Because those quarterbacks are going to want this type of a contract. Are they worth it? No. But that's what they're going to want. That's what they're going to angle for. And it's going to get nasty. Of course, now the Gardeners decide to show up. Nothing against them. They're just doing their job. But the soundproofing cannot come soon enough. But the point I was making was, how can you say to your franchise quarterback, the guy who you've staked your franchise on, you're not Patrick Mahomes, so we're not going to give you this type of a contract? The franchise quarterback is going to say, well, don't you think I can get to Mahomes? Maybe not do exactly what Mahomes did, but get close to that? Don't you think I can throw for 4,000 yards? Don't you think I can throw for 30 touchdowns and win Super Bowl MVP? This is going to be a very tricky needle for teams like the Jets, the Giants, the Browns, and the Bills to thread. You want to tell me that it's painfully obvious that they're not going to do what Mahomes did? So they shouldn't be paid as much? Or get this type of a structure? Yes, you're right. But that's not how free agency works. That is not how contracts for quarterbacks work. Look at the timeline. The highest paid quarterbacks in NFL history have not been the best quarterbacks. They've been the quarterbacks that have gotten paid at the right time. A guy like Sam Darnold, assuming he pans out, has to be doing backflips over this. Because he's slated to make more now than he was 24 hours ago when he gets his second contract. Same thing with Mayfield, assuming he pans out. Josh Allen's probably going to get more than both of them. He's already been in the playoffs. We live in a world where these quarterbacks are getting fully guaranteed deals. Kirk Cousins got it from the Vikings. Tom Brady got it from the Buccaneers. It's a fair bet to say that some of these young quarterbacks that are coming up are going to get similar contracts. You're right that they haven't earned it. But that's the way free agency is. Teams are at the mercy of whatever the historical contracts are. All in all, you can't begrudge this contract for the Chiefs. They had to do it. You want to tell me that they should have angled for a team-friendly contract? Alright, I'm sure they asked for Mahomes to take a team-friendly deal, but if the guy wants his big boy contract now, he's earned it. Good for him. He deserves it. He's the best player in the NFL. This is a huge contract. The Chiefs have to win multiple Super Bowls for this to work. This can't be it. The Chiefs can't hover around the Lombardi Trophy but never win it. They have to win at least, let's say, 3 more for this to be worth it. And you know what? I think they can. Moving on now to soccer. I have never talked soccer on this show before, but it's worth bringing up because a really bad harbinger for the MLB, the NHL, and the NBA has appeared in the form of FC Dallas. Basically, what the MLS is doing, Major League Soccer, is they're having the MLS is back tournament. I'm not sure exactly what the stakes are of that tournament. I think it's a berth in some kind of international tournament, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a big soccer fan. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because 10 of FC Dallas's players tested positive for the coronavirus. So, MLS's commissioner, Don Garber, decided to remove FC Dallas from the tournament. So that's it. They're out. I have no idea what's going to happen with that extra spot. Maybe their slated opponent gets a bye. I really don't know. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this is a scary, scary thing to think about when you look at it from a baseball, hockey, or basketball perspective. You can't tell me that this can't happen to a team in one of those three leagues. FC Dallas isn't special. This can happen to your favorite team. I mean, you're already seeing it in the NBA with the Nets. I went through the rotation last week that they're going to have to put out there. They're running quadruple A players. I mean, again, all it takes is one idiot to go out late at night, to not adhere to these leagues' protocols, get the coronavirus, not know about it, and then he's infected his whole team. You can't tell me that can't happen. This is a scary harbinger. You want to tell me that it's not applicable to these other sports because soccer coming back is set to start tomorrow and these leagues aren't coming back for another couple weeks? What do you think is going to happen in a couple weeks? Seriously. You're telling me that there can't be another idiot? Look, I don't know who the patient zero for FC Dallas was. There had to be one. If 10 players from one team get the coronavirus, yeah, there's a patient zero somewhere. And that guy is now meat. That's it. Off the team next year. Banned from ever setting foot in their stadium again. I mean, that's how ostracized he's going to be. He may never even play in the league again. But you can't tell me that this can't happen to another league. I mean, the one good thing is, if we really get all the players safely ensconced in the bubble, it's unlikely that they're going to get the coronavirus if they follow the proper protocols, but it's not a guarantee. The workers from Disney for the NBA are still traveling back and forth, so they can give the coronavirus to someone. There's no way to do this 100% safely. I'm not saying we cancel the whole thing. We're not at that point yet. But this is a really bad harbinger for Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, and the National Basketball Association. There's no question about that in my mind. Moving on now to the JETS, Just Endure the Sufferings. Every Jets fan's favorite beat writer, Manish Mehta, published something saying that when Adam Gase first got to the Jets, he wanted them to trade Marcus Maye. Now, in all fairness to Mehta, he didn't shoehorn this in somewhere. He's doing the top 20 players on the Jets roster. And it's kind of funny, number 20 is the punter, Braden Mann. That's pretty scary when your 20th best player is the punter. I'm not here to debate the list. I'm just saying Marcus Maye was next on the list. He's number 10, so that's why Mehta put it in. So he was trying to say, like, Gase wanted to trade him. It's a good thing that the Jets didn't trade him because he had a good year last year, and he's slated to have another really good year. But what's the point of publishing this now, Manish? Seriously, who are you benefiting by doing that? You have such a vendetta against Adam Gase. It's not even funny. And you're such a freaking hypocrite. Because right after he was hired, you went on Joe and Evan and defended the hire. We all remember the Wyatt V18 Twitter scandal. Was that your Twitter? God only knows if it was or not. I wouldn't put it past you. You are that low. You are a terrible beat writer. I can't think of one positive thing you've ever wrote about the Jets. You want to tell me that there's not a lot to be positive about? I understand that. But always look on the bright side of life. Realize you're writing for the fans. The fans don't want to hear how their team is garbage. We know the team is garbage. Give us something to look forward to, you idiot! And I have no proof that this is true. I wouldn't put it past Mehta to have made this up to make Gase look bad. We know they hate each other. I don't blame Gase for hating Mehta. I hate Mehta. I think he's terrible at his job. And the best part is, this is supposed to be a nail in Gase's coffin. He wanted to trade this guy, and look at the year he had. I'll tell you, Maye had a really good year playing next to Jamal Adams. The two of them together were one of the best safety duos in the NFL. We all know how great Jamal Adams was. Marcus Maye last year, according to Pro Football Focus, had a 74.5 overall grade. But this is supposed to be some knock on Gase as he can't judge talent. I guarantee you that's why Mehta put this in there. He didn't have to put it in there. He did for that reason. There's no way you can tell me otherwise. Well, I'll tell you why Gase wanted to trade Maye, assuming he did. But if he did, here's the reason why. Maye only played in 6 games when Gase got there. He was coming off an okay rookie season, and then his sophomore season, he only played 6 games. If Gase didn't like Maye coming out of Florida, and he just didn't see a lot in Maye when the Jets played the Dolphins, of course he's going to want to trade him. I don't begrudge him for that. Now, I'm glad that the Jets didn't trade Maye. Like I said, he had a really good year last year. But it's an understandable mindset to have wanted to trade Maye. Things can change like that in the NFL. One year you're terrible, and you're on the trading block. The next year you play great, and that's it. We want you back long term. There's nothing here. There's nothing to worry about here. If the Jets trade Jamal Adams, which I don't think is going to happen, at least not soon, but if they do, they're not going to trade Marcus Maye also. They're going to lock Maye up long term. They're going to put Ashton Davis in at strong safety, their 3rd round pick out of California, and the two of them are going to be a really good safety duo for the Jets. There's nothing to worry about here. There's nothing here. Alright, it's time for decades of dumbass decisions. We're on the 2:15 matchups right now, and we'll start with the Yankees. The hardest one to do so far. That will change as we get further into this, but as of right now, through the 4 that I did yesterday and the 4 that I did in advance of today's show, this was by far the hardest. The 2001 World Series versus Pavano and Wright. I've said this before about the 2001 World Series. The Yankees lost to an inferior team. That team that the Diamondbacks had only had 3 great players. They had Luis Gonzalez, who had a magical season in 01. It got overshadowed by Bonds hitting 73 home runs, but don't take anything away from what Luis Gonzalez did. He was insane. He hit .325 with 57 homers and 142 RBIs. He also had 100 walks to 83 strikeouts. That's not something that you see too often. More walks than strikeouts. They also had 2 of the best pitchers in baseball, Curt Schilling and Randy Johnson, not showing their age at all. Schilling 34, Johnson 37. They both had at least 21 wins. The Yankees were just a better team going into that World Series. Jeter had a great year. Martinez had a great year. Soriano had a really good year. Chuck Knobloch had a pretty good year. Bernie Williams had a really good year. You take a look at their pitching staff. Roger Clemens was insane. He went 20-3. Mariano Rivera had 50 saves. Mike Mussina was great in his first year with the Yankees. Andy Pettitte was great. The Yankees were better than the Diamondbacks. They were picked to beat the Diamondbacks. Especially since they had the entire nation outside of Arizona rooting for them. Realize, the World Series started that year a month and 16 days after 9/11. There were a lot of people who had never rooted for the Yankees before, that wanted the Yankees to win because they were from New York, and New York was the site of the World Trade Center. With all that going for them, the Yankees lay an egg. The first 2 games, they only score 1 run. They come back to the Bronx to play 3 straight games. They barely win those games. Every game they won in that series was only by 1 run. Now, it had some great moments. Paul O'Neill, Derek Jeter, Tino Martinez, Byung-Hyun Kim looked terrible in that series. But the simple fact is, if you win all your games in a World Series by just 1 run, you're doing something wrong. Game 6, they get blown out. Game 7, they have every opportunity to win. Mariano Rivera comes in the 9th inning to preserve a 2-1 lead. Best closer in baseball history to preserve a Game 7 1-run lead. Yeah, the Yankees are winning this World Series. Instead, Mark Grace singles. Rivera throws a ball into the outfield. Jay Bell sacrifice bunt. Tony Womack double. Luis Gonzalez single. And the Yankees lose. They lose a World Series that they should have won. Pavano and Wright refers to 8 of the darkest days in Yankee history. This was after 2004. The Yankees in 2004 didn't have a pitcher win 15 games. John Lieber and Javier Vasquez tied for the lead with 14. It was a big reason why they blew that 3-0 lead to the Red Sox. So Cashman knows he needs to go out and find quality pitching. He decided to add Carl Pavano and Jaret Wright in the span of 8 days. Pavano on December 20th, 2004. Wright on December 28th, 2004. Great Christmas present, right? Yeah, I don't think so. Cashman got suckered into the fact that in 2004, before their free agent years, so they're extra motivated, they had really good years. Pavano in 2004 made his only All-Star team. He went 18-8 with the Marlins with a 3 ERA. And in the playoffs in 2003, he looked great. Game 4 of the 2003 World Series, that's going to come tomorrow. He pitched great. 8 innings of 1-run ball. That, combined with the 2004 season, meant that Pavano got a huge contract from the Yankees. 4 years, $38 million. It may not seem like a lot now, but it was back then. Jaret Wright, another one-year wonder. Before 2003, Wright didn't have a year where he had an under 4.3 ERA. In 2004, he pitched well. 15-8 with a 3.28 ERA. Good for him. Cashman took that 1 year and gave him a 2-year deal worth over $13 million and said to him, "You're going to be a big part of our rotation next year." What did Pavano and Wright do for the Yankees? Well, Pavano couldn't stay healthy. The guy once missed a season because he fell on his ass. Literally. That's literally what happened. The guy fell on his ass and he missed an entire season. Pavano only started 26 games for the Yankees, including an opening day that I was there for. I think they won that game, if I remember correctly. Or maybe it was an opening day, maybe a home opener. It was one of the two. 26 games for the Yankees, he went 9-8 with a 5 ERA. Great return on investment. Jaret Wright, in 2 years with the Yankees, was only slightly better. 16-12 with a 4.99 ERA in 40 starts. They didn't do anything in the playoffs. You can forgive the bad regular season performances. If you have a great playoff game, all's forgiven. They did nothing. 2 of the many players the Yankees had when I was growing up that I hated. But as much as I hated them, the 2001 World Series is worse. Like I said, you lose to an inferior team. It's just worse than signing 2 busts in free agency. That happens. It stinks. It's horrible. I don't want to minimize it, but it's not as bad as the 2001 World Series. Moving over to the Islanders, we have the 2000 draft versus the Travis Green trade. A lot happened with the 2000 draft. The Islanders had the first overall pick. They could have taken Danny Heatley. They could have taken Marian Gaborik. Instead, Milbury takes a goalie first overall. Only the second time that's happened in NHL history, up to that point anyway. The first goalie taken first overall was Michel Placé, one of the biggest busts in NHL history. Milbury should have learned from that. DiPietro could have been really good. In fact, he could have been great. He made an all-star team. Or 2. I don't remember off the top of my head. But there was a time when Rick DiPietro was one of the 10 best goalies in hockey. He just couldn't stay healthy. Alright. You know, that happens. Players get hurt all the time. You just move on from it. Oh no, the Islanders couldn't. Because in a stroke of genius by Charles Wang, he was signed to a 15-year contract. Worth over $4 million a year. The Islanders don't have money as it is. They can't afford to give over $4 million to someone who can't take a punch. Man, I remember where I was when DiPietro got amnestied. Right after the new CBA was adopted in the NHL, they put in an amnesty clause. So you'd still have to pay the player, but he wouldn't count against the cap. The Islanders amnesty DiPietro. I was in Minnesota. I was in Target Field. Watching a Yankees-Twins game. I start jumping up and down. I'm really happy. Everyone looks at me. What's going on? The Islanders just got rid of DiPietro. And my father and I are really happy. You may be wondering who the incumbent goalie was for the Islanders. I mean, after all, if you draft a goalie as a prospect, you probably don't have a young, up-and-coming goalie. Right? Well, that's a fair assumption to make, but you'd be wrong, as the Islanders had Roberto Luongo, a guy who the year before showed promise. I've watched those games. Luongo looked good. Not great, but he looked good. You could see the talent there. Milbury decides to trade him, along with Olli Jokinen, to the Florida Panthers for Mark Parrish and Ole Kavasha the same day that he took DiPietro. So instead of taking a Heatley or a Gaborik and adding him to a team that already had Luongo, Milbury decided that Parrish, Kavasha, and DiPietro was better. If your head is spinning right now, I don't blame you. You have to wonder the bass-ackwards logic that he used to get to that point. There's one final caveat to that draft, and not too many people remember this. The Islanders had the 5th overall pick in that draft also. They got it from the Lightning. I actually don't know how they got it. If you know, please tell me. They used it to take Raffi Torres. Not a terrible player. Good third liner. Physical player, someone call him a dirty player. You know, I liked Torres when I saw him play. One pick after him, Scott Hartnell. Scott Hartnell is a million times better than Raffi Torres. That's going up against the Travis Green trade. Before Green became head coach of the Canucks, he was a former Islander draft pick. He spent 5.5 years with the Islanders, played well, looked really good. But Mike Milbury decided to trade him in a 6-player trade that got the Islanders Joe Sacco, J.J. Daigneault, and Mark Janssens. It is perfectly fine if you don't know who those players are. The other players that the Islanders gave up aren't important. Doug Howda and Tony Tuzolino, it's irrelevant. Travis Green is the guy who you need to focus on. After Green was traded from the Islanders, he kept up his really good play, good third liner, really young player. The point is that a rebuilding Islanders team gave up a player in the prime of his career, a homegrown guy, and they gave him up for nothing. But that doesn't even come close to the 2000 draft. Instead, of Heatley or Gaborik and Hartnell and Luongo and Jokinen, the Islanders had DiPietro, Torres, Parrish, and Kavasha. Doesn't get much worse than that. Moving over to the Jets, we have the 1982 AFC Championship game going up against Week 17 of 1997. The 1982 AFC Championship game has also been called the Mud Bowl. At the Orange Bowl, on January 23rd, 1983, the Jets were set to go up against the Dolphins before Dan Marino, with a Super Bowl berth on the line. The Jets that year had a really potent offense. Richard Todd had a really good season. So did Freeman McNeil. So did Wesley Walker. The Jets' offense had the third most points per game in the league. Their defense was also really good. They still had the sack exchange. Bobby Jackson was there also. Greg Buttle was there. They had a really good offensive line anchored by three of the most underrated players in Jets history. At center, Joe Fields, right guard, Dan Alexander, and right tackle, Marvin Powell. Well, why was this game called the Mud Bowl? You've told me that the Jets had a good team. Well, the Jets were a fast team. They were a run-and-gun team. The day before the game, it rained like a bandit in Miami. The Dolphins didn't put the tarp on the field, so it didn't have time to dry. Because of that, the Dolphins neutralized the best weapon the Jets had, which was speed. Richard Todd was abysmal. He barely threw for 100 yards. He threw 5 interceptions. Freeman McNeil couldn't get going. The leading receiver for the Jets was Johnny Lamb Jones. He caught 3 passes for only 35 yards. The Jets got shut out, 14-0. The icing on the cake was A.J. Dewey. He's still going. Was a good linebacker for the Dolphins, not great, but this was his moment in the sun. He intercepted a pass and returned it 35 yards untouched to the house. It's worth watching the clip so you can see how bad it was. I can't put it into words. I know it's on YouTube. Week 17 of 1997, the first year of Bill Parcells, all the Jets have to do is win their last game of the season, and they're in the playoffs. It was against the Lions at the Silverdome. The Jets played like garbage. Their running game was abysmal. Their run defense was terrible. Barry Sanders carved them up like crazy. Scott Mitchell had an okay game at quarterback for the Lions. Not great, not terrible. Safe with the football, game manager. That was Scott Mitchell. Neil O'Donnell was okay, not great. Certainly not what the Jets wanted when they signed him to that big money deal to get away from the Steelers. The Jets had a 10-0 lead after the first quarter. They gave up 13 unanswered points to lose 13-10 to the Lions. Because of that, the Lions made the playoffs. Yes, that's right. Whoever won that game was going into the playoffs. Fortunately, the Lions lost to the Buccaneers 20-10, but God only knows what would have happened if that was the Jets. But there's really no question that the 82 AFC title game is worse. Just the combination of the rain and the Dolphins not covering the field. Smart move, give Shula credit, but if I had been alive back then, I would have been screaming my head off. I'm telling you, watch the A.J. Dewey clip. It's worth it. The last thing is the Brooklyn Nets. The 2009 offseason to the 2010 offseason is going up against Sugar Ray's band. The 2009 offseason was a really, really bitter pill to swallow as a Nets fan. They had already moved on from Richard Jefferson, they had already moved on from Jason Kidd, but they still had Vince Carter. And Vince Carter, you don't need me to tell you how good he was. One of the best players in the NBA. There was a sense among some Nets fans that if the Nets had built a solid supporting cast around a core of Carter, Devin Harris, and a young Brook Lopez, the Nets could have made the playoffs. Instead, the Nets decided to pull the plug on the whole thing. They traded Vince Carter. Alright. What was the trade? It was Vince Carter and Ryan Anderson to the Magic for Rafer Alston, Tony Batty, and Courtney Lee. Yeah, that's right. Ryan Anderson spent his rookie year with the Nets, then got traded to the Magic before he got good. Really good stretch for Ryan Anderson. Got overpaid, and that really killed his legacy. That's what makes this trade really bad to me. Vince Carter, you can live with that. The Nets traded Jason Kidd, they got Devin Harris. Devin Harris had some good years for the Nets. But the combination of trading Ryan Anderson along with Vince Carter, plus what the Nets got in the trade, plus the fact that they traded Vince Carter, still a tough pill to swallow, that makes the trade really bad. Rafer Alston played only 27 games for the Nets. Tony Batty only played 15 games for the Nets. And Courtney Lee only spent one season with the Nets. And in that 1 year, he wasn't very good. He was there for the 12-70 season. I remember that year vividly. Lawrence Frank, who I liked, starts the season 0-16. Gone. Tom Barisi, the interim coach, ties the record for most losses to start an NBA season and then breaks it. Kiki Vandeweghe takes over. He was their GM. Now he's their coach. Absolutely terrible. The Nets limp to a 12-70 season. I'd say watch those games to get a sense of how bad they were, but I like you too much to say that. But the offseason is coming. Well, what did the Nets do in the offseason? They were the worst team in the NBA. Surely they got the first overall pick. No! They fell to the third overall pick. So because of that, they missed out on John Wall. John freaking Wall could have been a net. You put him with Devin Harris and Brook Lopez, you've got something there. That's a good core. That's a solid core. And in the offseason that year, after the draft, they took Derek Favors, who the Nets didn't give a chance to get good. I like the Darren Williams trade. He was traded in the Darren Williams trade. I don't begrudge that trade at all. So I'm not going to say too much about Derek Favors. All I'm going to say is he didn't get a lot of time with the Nets. He wasn't that good with the Nets, so that's it. The Nets positioned themselves as big free agent players. They were the first team that LeBron James met with when he was a free agent for the first time. And there were dreams of greatness. Mikhail Prokhorov coming in, Avery Johnson, the best winning percentage in NBA history for a coach coming in. They're going to move to Brooklyn in a few years. Come join this great up-and-coming team. They miss on everyone. Even the Knicks got Amari Stoudemire. Every team got someone good in free agency that year, except the Nets. What did the Nets do with that cap space? They signed Jordan Farmar, Anthony Morrow, Travis Outlaw, and Johan Petro. Farmar and Morrow were solid players. Travis Outlaw, good bench player, massively overpaid. 5 years, $35 million. At the time, that was crazy. Johan Petro got a big contract. He did nothing with the Nets. He was abysmal. Without question, that's the worst 12-month stretch in Nets history. It's going up against Sugar Ray's band. Who's Sugar Ray? Good question. It's Michael Ray Richardson. You may not know the name, but there was a time when Michael Ray Richardson was one of the better players in the NBA. Came up with the Knicks, made 3 All-Star teams for him, then was traded to the Warriors for Bernard King. And then, less than 4 months later, he's traded from the Warriors to the Nets for Sleepy Floyd and Mickey Johnson. Floyd was a really good player. Mickey Johnson was solid. For the Nets, in 3.5 seasons, Sugar Ray averaged 16 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and over 2.5 steals per game. He also made an All-Star team in 84-85. He was an integral part of 3 Nets playoff teams. All seemed well with him. But he had a drug problem. On February 25th, 1986, David Stern banned Richardson for life from the NBA, thus robbing the Nets of a key contributor. Nothing against Stern's decision, he had to do it, but that started a really, really bad stretch for the Nets. They made the playoffs after he was banned. They wouldn't make the playoffs again until 92. So the ban really started a long stretch of lean years for the Nets. As bad as that was, it doesn't even come close to the 12-month stretch from the 2009 offseason when they traded Vince Carter to the 2010 offseason when they signed Farmar, Morrow, Petro, and Outlaw. From the start of that to the end of that, I can't think of a worse 12 months in Nets history. Alright, that's going to do it for today. One quick thing before I go. I didn't make myself clear with the Baseball Hall of Fame what I'm going to do after I'm done evaluating each person in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to go through everyone who's not in the Hall of Fame and tell you who should be in. That may sound hard, but it's really not. Thank you, Baseball Reference, so much. They have this tool called StatHead that is really invaluable. It helped me out a lot for this. It's just really fun to peruse baseball history like that if you're into it. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that Jack Nicklaus probably had a lousy curveball.